make if you gain this whole world and lose your soul? Because in the text prior, he says, what will it profit a man if he gains all the money, if he has all of the tailor-made suits, if he has all of 15 different cars in his garage, in his multi-level house, if he walks in that house and the peace of God has not rested there? When you are committed to God, God don't mind you having stuff. God just don't want stuff to have you. And many of us, the more stuff we get, the less God we want. The more cars we get, the less we want to ride a chariot. The bigger the house is, the less we want to go to the house of God. Are y'all in here with me? The more clothes we have, we don't want to wear white robes. Are y'all in here? The more Gucci and all that stuff that we got, we don't want to wear robes of righteousness. Yeah, Jesus said, unto another follow me. But he said, Lord, suffer me to first go and bury my daddy who ain't dead yet. Because your Bible says, let me go bury the dead, but the originality of the text, the intrial of the text, and the historical data says that the man was not dead. But he was obligated to take care of his father because he was the oldest. So he said, Lord, let me go ahead and make sure I take care of my daddy. And then when he died, then I'm going to bury him. And then I'll catch up with you. I'm talking to somebody right here who you have taken something and put as a priority in front of God, and you say, God, whenever this died down, then I'll catch up with you. You know, God bless you with a whole lot of money. You say, God, when this is gone, I'll catch up with you. Some of y'all looking at me with that tone of voice. Let me help you understand. We all do it. We all are guilty of it from time to time. We will say, God, whenever my health starts failing, then I'll catch up with you. Lord, when I'm standing in divorce court, then I will catch up with you. Lord, when my kids are all in jail, then I will catch up with you. He said, let me bury my daddy who ain't dead yet. Jesus says, you know what? Here's a principle I want you to understand. Greatness always attaches to greatness. Losers always attach to losers. I'm not talking about ministering to losers. Losers always attach to losers. I'm not trying to denigrate anybody in here because if that's you, that's why you're here, so you can change. So if that made you mad, then that means you ought to change. I got about 15 more minutes to give this. But he says, winners hang with winners. Losers hang with losers. Winners hang with losers for one of two reasons. Either to make the loser a winner or to lord themselves over the loser. So the man says, Jesus says, follow me. He said, let me go bury my daddy who is not dead yet. Jesus said, losers hang with losers, winners hang with winners. How do I know that? Because he said, let the dead. This is how it was, quote, let the dead bury the dead. But if you look at your Bible, you will see it is not let the dead bury the dead. It's let the dead bury their dead. See, because dead things hang around dead things. Y'all ain't saying nothing back to me. And you wondering why your life is in a mess. You need to see how much dead stuff you keep hanging around you. You wondering why you can't get over this hump. You got too much dead stuff hanging on to you. You need to get rid of that dead, putrefying body. Because if you hold on to it, it will soon kill you. If you put a dead thing on a person's back and they carry that thing around dead, soon it will kill them. Because the death that's in the thing will cause the life that's in the thing to die. So he said, let the dead bury that dead. And oh, let me help you understand. If you're connected to God, if you're committed to God, if you're committed to the things of God, you cannot listen to the naysayers and the haters who try to tell you, I don't understand why you're doing this and I don't understand why you're doing that. You got to understand, they're dead. They ain't going nowhere. You already made your mind up. If God be for me, who can be against me? I'm going to put God first and I'll catch everybody else on the other side. Tell somebody, say, let the dead bury the dead. I feel like something about to happen in here. You got to let the dead stuff hang out with the dead stuff. But if you're alive and popping, you got to get up and get it on. Because God is looking for somebody right now in this dimension of time to get busy in the things of God. God, you can't wait till you're 40 and 50 years old. There are people right now that have been assigned to your life right now. And if you don't get yourself together, they may drop dead and never get to their destiny. And when you stand before God, God will say, depart from me, I never knew you. Because everybody got a purpose. Everybody got an assignment. And it's time for you to stop half-stepping. Get committed to God and get to doing what God called you to do. Forget about getting a plaque. Forget about getting a letter. Forget about getting your name in the newspaper. Forget about your name in the newsletter. If God bless you, can't no man curse you. Somebody shout and give him praise. Being committed will cost you something. But one thing I love about God, he's already deposited enough in you to pay the cost. Because being committed to anything will cost you something. But you got to understand, whenever you're moving into the anatomy of commitment, it calls for a renewal of your mind. Because Romans chapter 12 and verse number 1, let's look at it. Romans chapter 12 and verse number 1. Somebody getting blessed right now. Because you're changing your mind. And you say, I'm going to get committed. Because God's got a word for the church today. Because the church will not fail. Verse number 1, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Now stop right there. Normally when a sacrifice is given, the sacrifice is dead. But Paul then exhorts us to give a living sacrifice. What does a living sacrifice do? Well, if the sacrifice is already dead, then the sacrifice would not feel the fact that it is a great sacrifice. But if the sacrifice is alive, it will feel the fact that it is a great sacrifice, and it will appreciate the fact that it was chosen over all the other sacrifices to be sacrificed. He said, present your body as a living sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, let me help you understand. If you're going to be committed to a thing, God is calling you to be a living sacrifice. But Lord, what about the pain? Jesus said, what about mine? What about the shame? Jesus said, what about mine? You said, what about isolation? Jesus said, what about mine? What about being put on ostracized? Jesus said, what about mine? Then the last thing you say is, what about the grave? He said, I didn't stay there. Oh, somebody will get that in the morning. He said, I didn't stay there, which says that if you sacrifice, you might get killed. You might get ostracized. You might get criticized. You might get crucified. You might even get buried. But in 3 days, you're going to get back up with all power. Somebody better shout right here. All power in your hand. Slap your neighbor and say, neighbor, I got to die in order to live the Zoe life. Well, I feel like something about to happen in here. Oh, God, I'm tired of just living. I'm ready to live the Zoe life, the God kind of life. You might have a short term of pain, but you're going to have long term of gain. I say you might have a short term of pain, but you're going to have a long term of gain. If you're committed to God and you're going through hell and high water right now, the Bible said be exceedingly joyful. That means shout right in the middle of where you're going through. That means get happy right in the middle of the valley and the shadow of death. Praise your way through that valley. Praise your way through that shadow, because the enemy thought he had you. But look at you now. You're still blessed. You're still here. You're still prospering. Your mouth still praising. Your hands still waving. Your feet still stomping. Your hands still clapping. And you're still going to the bank, because if God be for me, who can be against me? Somebody shout and shabak the Lord. Touch your neighbor, say, neighbor, today I choose to quit half-stepping. Somebody say, yeah, 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 yeah. I ain't gonna do that. Watch this. Oh, yeah. See, we got to quit half-stepping, because God's ready.